Hello, my name is Fraser Simons. Today I'm going to be talking about Daughter from the Dark, from the same couple who brought you Vita, Nostra, Marina and Sergey Dyachenko, translated by Julia Meitov Hersey. And I thought it was going to be the sequel to Vita Nostra, but it's not. So if you watched my video before and I was excited to read the sequel, X that. This is a standalone book. It has some things in common with Vita Nostra in that it's dark fantasy, there's some faith, there's some metaphysical stuff going on that all kind of work towards a dark fantasy take, but it is not the defined sequel to Vita Nostra, in which I believe there's a trilogy of books, but they're similar ideas. So if you liked Vita Nostra, you might like this still. Just don't expect the same sort of cerebral, metaphysical, academic type stuff. This is aptly named. Daughter from the Dark is about a radio DJ host who's kind of famous, kind of not. He's just celebrity enough to be getting decent work, but he's definitely not an actor or anything like that. And he is going home one night when he meets a daughter from the dark. Basically, hoodlums kind of assail him. He flees in the dark, and fearing for the girl's life as well, he grabs her, picks her up, takes her home, and then all these weird circumstances unfold. She tells him that he is her father, and she has a teddy bear that is she describes it as sort of like a creature that defends her. She says that she is sort of come from what she describes as paradise in order to find her brother and to sort of rescue him from this plane of existence, or at least find him and try to awaken him, because when people fall from paradise, if they do it in a particular way as this person did, it seems like kind of reincarnation maybe, then they don't know who they are, and they could be literally anybody. So the way that she tries to go about finding him is she has to learn on a musical instrument, a violin, and sometimes she uses a piano and whatnot, but she's primarily training on a violin to learn a very complex sequence that she can play, a particular song that only she knows that will resonate with the brother, and wherever he is, he'll be drawn to her, and that's her plan, basically. But along this way, we aren't sure as the reader if she's actually who she says she is. There's a lot of doubt thrown out about if she is somebody else's daughter, because he doesn't remember the wife, or not the wife, he doesn't remember the mother of the child, but it was quite a while ago. Yeah, there's just some weird, not more like supernatural examples of what she could be, but in a scientific way. Kind of like X-Files, I guess, would be a good parallel. So instead of her having supernatural powers and fallen from paradise, maybe she's really good at hypnosis and reading people, and she's really good at conning people into believing something, and she sort of attaches herself to these people, and then they do what she wants. But there's lots of events that kind of correlate to that example, and then there's a lot of things that happened where what she says seems to be true as well. So you're figuring that out, and then you're just following a very strange fairy tale-like thing where weird things happen. Her bear is possibly a defending creature. She feeds it honey. The jar of honey is empty in the morning, but we don't see the bear consuming it, stuff like that. people break into the apartment and are like shredded by a wild beast. The girl says that it was her bear, but other people just think that it's possibly like a burglary gone wrong where they turned on each other. Stuff like that. It has a very strange pace and strange plot where it feels like it's building up to something in a normal sort of structure, but the incidents that it puts into the plot to build it are not traditional things that you would see maybe in Western fantasy. And I think there's just cultural context stuff that I'm missing, possibly literal dark fantasy elements from that culture that I'm missing. There's a character that seems like they'd be from a fairy tale, and maybe it's alluding to that, but I'm not aware of it. Stuff like that. But yeah, it's a very strange book. It's different than Vita Nostra structurally in that there's actual chapters, not just part 1, 2, 3. Each chapter in the beginning is a day, and then it becomes into month-long segments, and then finally there's a conclusion. So it's a little bit more traditional in that way, but it does still feel like the couple that wrote Vita Nostra, in that it still does a paragraph skip and reframes a scene, and it could be moment to moment where we're going, or it could be, hours, days, months, or not months because the chapters are that, but it could be a long time, it could be a short time. You never really know, and it's just a paragraph skip to indent any kind of time lapse whatsoever. So I still like that aspect of the writing. I feel like this was maybe more accessible. It doesn't feel young adult like, but it's not as cerebral written as Vita Nostra. There's just on a sentence to sentence level and paragraph to paragraph level, it's pretty accessible and easy to read, and the main sort of twists, I guess you could say, come from the actual events, which are very strange and cognitive dissonance things, with the two explanations always going back and forth. And it's also interesting that, kind of like in Vita Nostra, the character is not very likable. In this one, he's not likable at all. They do a good job of humanizing him across it. In the beginning, you're gonna hate this guy. He takes her in and eventually just hates that he's done so. He sees her as like a burden, even though she's basically an ideal child. She doesn't cry or freak out or anything. She does, say these weird things, and he's having to grapple with what is true or not and whether to believe her. But he hits her sometimes. He's very mean. She has to do the cooking and the cleaning and stuff like that, but as they find an equilibrium and learn to respect each other, that drops out somewhat. But he's still kind of for lack of a better word, like a fuckboy, basically. When you picture a DJ radio host who's full of himself, this is pretty much that guy to a T. Whereas the girl is precocious, intelligent, seems pretty caring, pretty thoughtful, and very even grateful that she's able to share that space with him. And she never changes her story. She's very adamant about things, that he's the father and she needs to do this particular thing. She has more agency than you'd expect, considering the guy isn't a jerk to her. She doesn't go to school. All she does is practice on the violin, learning this song. And basically the crux of the story is if she's telling the truth to the reader or not, and what fallout there is from that. It feels sort of like K-Paxian in that way, where the main meat of the story is whether or not you're going to believe this person or not. And there's back and forth on that, but regardless of what the central conflict is, most of the satisfaction is going to be coming from what the actual explanation is for the girl. So I definitely would recommend it, just with the caveat that it is very different. It's not as cerebral, like I was saying. It's just, don't expect Vita Nostra, don't expect the sequel to Vita Nostra either, just a standalone story that is another book that they've written that sort of defies classification in neat lines, but is well worth reading. And it's got a brilliant cover, of course, as well. So what's stopping you, right? And the more that they presumably sell of Vita Nostra in that book, the more likely the sequel to Vita Nostra comes out, right? So let's make that happen. Go buy it. Otherwise, I think that'll do it for me. If you've read either of these books, or the other book that I'm got on my TBR is The Scar by them, which I think is their first translated work. And it came out a long time ago, like 2012, 2014, something like that. So I'll be reading that soon, doing another review on it most likely. Have you read any of their works? What do you think about it? Did you like Vita Nostra versus Daughter from the Dark? Were you like me and thought it was going to be a sequel and were not disappointed, but I was sort of looking for the meta tie-in to the universe from the revelations of Vita Nostra, and it's not quite like that, but it kind of still is. Like, you can tell there's some synergy happening anyway. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you next video. Goodbye.